Hello, and welcome to today's launch of the Family Resource Center Learning Hub. We are so glad to have you with us here virtually. My name is Andrew Russo. I'm the co-founder and director of the National Family Support Network. I'm based in Washington, D.C. And the National Family Support Network is a membership-based organization that's made up of statewide networks of family resource centers. And when we first started in 2011, there were just 8 states that were colored in green on this map. And now, 11 years later, we're up to 37 member networks. So 36 states and the District of Columbia that collectively represent more than 3,000 family resource centers working with our nation's families every day. The mission of the National Family Support Network is to promote positive outcomes for all children, families, and communities by leveraging the collective impact of those family resource center networks and championing quality family support and strengthening practices and policies. And our vision, simply put, is that that whole map would be green, that all families would be able to access quality family support in their communities through family resource centers supported by strong networks. So if you happen to be from a state or locality that isn't colored in green on that map currently, we'd particularly like to connect with you. The NFSN has 3 areas of work. The first is connecting and convening our members to peer share and learn from each other. The next is promoting family support best practice and evaluation. And then our third area of work is raising the visibility of the value and impact of FRCs and FRC networks. And now that we've told you a little bit about us, we'd like to learn more about you. So we're going to launch a series of poll questions here to get a sense of who's here in the virtual room. So first, looking at this map, ask you to identify which region of the country you're in. And then we're going to launch a poll question here to ask you to let us know where you are joining us from today. All right, so let's see the results here. We see that we have people actually joining us from all regions of the country and also from Canada. So welcome to everybody that's here today. So that was our first question for you. And then our next poll question will launch now, asking about your affiliation. So which of these best describes your affiliation? And if it's something other, then you can type what other is in the chat. So we'll be sure to recognize and welcome you. All right, so we see that with people from across the board here, family resource centers, family resource center networks, other family support programs, early care and education, child welfare, other government departments, private funders, and others. So lots of different folks wearing lots of different hats. So welcome to all of you. All right, and we are going to now go over what we'll be covering today. We will start with our introduction that will be provided by Peter Pecora from KC Family Programs. And then we're going to share the context for the Family Resource Center Learning Hub. We'll share what the development process for the hub was. And then we'll introduce you to what the hub is itself. And then we'll share what's next and also resources and opportunities available through the NFSN that may be of use to you moving forward. So that's our roadmap for our time together. And with that, we'll turn things over to Peter.
Thank you, Andrew. Pleasure to be here today. You know, I had the honor of helping some folks in Milwaukee, Wisconsin start up a storefront community center many years ago. So I have a very personal and a connection to this work in addition to the evaluation outcome research we've done in Orange County and other places. Just today, very briefly, we want to welcome everybody, and from the Casey Family Programs point of view, wanted to mention that we think the work that the network here, the national network, has underway is tremendous, and it's so badly needed now at such a crucial time in Canada, the United States, and other places. And the reason why I say that is that we know that involvement in the child welfare system can be very traumatizing for children and their families. And families who are entering the child welfare system are often facing multiple social and economic challenges. And we think as a society and as a country, we ought to be working very hard and investing as much to keep a family out of the child welfare system as we would invest in placing a child in foster care. And for that reason, the services that focus on building the strength and the stability and the long-term success of families are the kinds of services that we know are crucial to reducing parental stress, parental isolation, and the things that can lead to child abuse and neglect. The child welfare system, as all of you know, has relatively few interventions that really reduce poverty or address some of these upstream racial and economic inequalities. And so the more we can do to nurture multi-system interventions that are outside of, upstream from public child welfare, the better. And that is why we think Family Resource Centers are such a crucial part of the broader community continuum of family supports that should be out there in our various countries. We believe, and we've got evidence from the work we've done with Andrew and others, that Family Resource Centers can make a significant difference in supporting families to be healthy and strong, and they can reduce the need for more interventions that might be needed later. FRCs are a welcoming support of support for families. They provide these families with the kinds of services and social connections that we know are crucial for success. And for all these reasons, in addition to their multi-generational approach to how they're reaching out to grandparents, to extended family members, for all these reasons, we think this new learning network and the kinds of materials that are being going to be provided here are a very important next step that is badly needed for the field. So for those reasons, we wanted to say that we're very much pleased to be supporting this work. And Margaret Hunt and the other members of the partnerships team that work so closely with Andrew, I know are ecstatic to see this launching today. So turn that back to you, Andrew, and we'll get back to the rest of the work today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Peter, and thank you to Casey Family Programs for your support of this work. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Casey Family Programs, with their wonderful work trying to support our nation's children, when they partner with organizations that they support, they really partner with us. They roll up their sleeves and get right in there with us working together. So in addition to having had the opportunity to work with Peter, as mentioned, also Margie Hunt, who's here today, Latasha Pearson, Nicole Dobbins, and many, many other wonderful people across Casey Family Programs have connected with us to support the hub that you'll see released today. So thank you very much for that. And today we also have another special voice to share. So in addition to myself as co-presenter, we have Kirsty Cheese joining us from Canada. And Kirsty was involved in the, served on the planning committee for the hub that you'll hear more about in just a little bit. And we'll turn to her to introduce herself and tell you more about her work in the family support field.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's really an honor to be here today, speaking to you all and to have this opportunity to share a little bit about the family centers. So I put this slide first, but I probably should have put the next slide first, if you don't mind moving to that. Just to say where I'm coming to you from. So here on the map, you can see London, Ontario is underneath that big arrow. We are a city of about 500,000 people nestled in southwestern Ontario. We're just mere hours from the Michigan and New York borders. It is a highly populated area and it's just lovely, and we welcome you to visit us anytime. I did want to just speak a little bit about the family centers and how unique they are in our city. But in order to do that, I have to go back a little bit and talk about some just statistics that we heard back in 2007. And it was really troubling to learn how many of our children were not ready to start grade 1, that a number would experience poverty during their childhood, and how many children were overweight and obese. And that just wasn't right. And so backed by the City of London, the Child and Youth Network was born. And this is a network of over 170 organizations and individuals from all sectors across London, committed to a collaborative approach to improving outcomes for children, youth, and families. We knew that families were struggling to navigate the social service system, which I'm sure is not unique to London. People were unsure how to access services. They had to travel all over town to tell their story multiple times. And if they landed at the right option, they were still waiting too long to receive services. So as mission-driven organizations, the Child and Youth Network responded by developing a system that was continues to be family-centered, recognizing the families as experts in their own lives and putting them at the center of all that we do. And over the next 15 years, the network built 8 family centers strategically located throughout the city to provide neighborhood level access to services, programs, and supports. Our centers are wrapped around the provincially funded Early On and On y Va programs, so is the French side, to offer free, high quality programs for families and children from birth to 6 years old. In these programs, families can learn and play, meet other people, and get advice from early childhood professionals, which is so essential to starting off that family on the right foot. London's Family Centre system, in addition to that, brings together multiple agencies to provide additional services to the whole family. So we are looking at school age and youth, parenting programs, intergenerational programming, everything that we can think of to help that family succeed. And key to this approach are the community connectors who are working on site and throughout the community, whose job is to help make those links to the community services and resources that will improve outcomes for the families. They are the ones building the relationships and helping to have people talk through what it is that they might be needing at that moment in time. I do have a little video that we wanted to share.
Play is the way we say, I'm here. I see you. I can help.
Play is the way I show you what I'm learning, how I'm growing, what I need.
Play is the way they know they're safe. They're supported. They're loved. At London's Family Centres, we focus on learning through play, connections to community, and support for the whole family. For all the ordinary and extraordinary parts of life, we're here. Let's get together. Visit familyinfo.ca/familycenters today.
Just wonderful when that works. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for letting me take a few moments to share a little bit about our beloved family centers.
All right. Thank you so much, Kirsty, and for introducing the work in Canada. We are also joined here today by Zindu Sali from the CEO of Families Canada, our peer network to the north that was also involved in the development of the Family Resource Center Learning Hub. So special welcome to her. And to put things in context for the development of the hub, we first need to talk about family resource centers. So family resource centers may be community-based, like the image you see on the left in Vermont, or they may be school-based, like the image you see on the right in Kentucky. And family resource centers have emerged organically over the years. So many people are not familiar with them. So we often refer to them as America's best kept secret. So we're going to launch a couple polls here to get a sense of what our starting point is for our discussion and learning today. So our first poll will pop up here on your screen that asks, how familiar are you with family resource centers? All right, so we see that the majority of folks here are the biggest chunk of people here are familiar, very familiar with family resource centers. And then we also have some who are somewhat familiar or not familiar. And it's a great place to be because we're talking about learning about FRCs. And so we'll launch our next poll here. Have you ever visited a family resource center? All right, so we see that quite a number of you have, but also quite a number of you have not. So this is always an interesting question because there's a big difference between folks saying they're familiar with FRCs and also have you actually seen them? And that's one of the things that we're talking about is how do we create opportunities for people to see these programs that once you know about them, you're only going to love them. Family resource centers work with families with an approach that is multi-generational, strengths-based, and family-centered. And they're designed for all families. So not only for low-income families or highly challenged families, but truly designed for all families, since all families could use support sometimes. They provide services and supports that are no or low cost for participants. They support families to build protective factors that ensure that they're healthy and strong, less likely to experience child abuse and neglect, as Peter referenced. And family resource centers have a track record of successful outcomes demonstrated through multiple external evaluations. And we'll talk about where you can find that research and information as it may be useful to you as we go forward today. So family resource centers, really useful. And yet there's no dedicated federal funding for FRCs. And yet there are more than 3,000 of them nationwide that serve more than 2 million people annually here in the States. So how could that be? How could that be that this work has emerged organically to now cover so much of the US without a lot of intentionality behind it? And given that we're in a landscape that looks like this, where so much has emerged organically and FRCs look like lots of different things and are in lots of different places and have lots of different funding streams, how is it that we build a field with so much diversity? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So turn to you, Kirsty.
Thank you, Andrew. One of the ways that the NFSN has tried to connect the dots across the wonderful FRCs out there is by developing common standards that anyone working with families can use. My own connection with the standards, it took place about 2 years ago when I was attending my first Together for Families conference, and I heard the call for the Canadian perspective on the Standards Review Committee. And I saw this as an opportunity to learn more about the standards in relation to my own work and to bring that Canadian voice to the table. I really appreciated the value that NFSN has placed on including that Canadian representation to ensure that the standards will work regardless of which side of the border that you're on. And these standards are designed to be used by all stakeholders, no matter where you're working, as a tool for planning, providing, and assessing quality practice, just to make sure that everybody is providing that high level quality for the families that we're serving. And the unique piece about the standards of quality is that they integrate and operationalize the principles of family support practice with the Strengthening Families approach, which is research-based and evidence-informed with the 5 protective factors. The standards create a common language and expectation across all kinds of programs. And we know there's quite a diversity of them across the states and across Canada. That includes family support programs, family resource centers, home visiting programs, child development programs. And they ensure that the families receive that quality practice while they're being supported and strengthened. And they're all available for free on the NFSN website, which we all know the value of free tools and resources. From my own perspective, participating in the standards, it really did enhance and validate the work that we are doing locally, because we want to ensure that consistent quality experience for families, regardless of which family center door they enter. And so participating in the standards really helped to enhance that work that we were doing and continue to do. I'm referring to the standards as we are redeveloping and reviewing the different resources that we are using to support the connectors working across multiple sites.
Okay. And now that we've talked about standards is one of the ways we try to bring everybody all together around common quality practice. There's some other things that exist that also try to provide standardized information. So one is the FRC page of the NFSN website. So the FRC page is the one-stop for everything FRC in terms of how we typically refer to it. That's where you can find overviews about FRCs, videos. You can virtually visit FRCs across the country that have taped tours and discussions about how they set up their FRCs and the kinds of work that they do. That's also where you can find all the research reports for the research that's been done on FRCs over the years, including research supported by Casey Family Programs. And it's also where you can find information about systems level funding of family resource centers. So all that exists already right there on the FRC page on the NFSN website. And then there's also the Webinar Wednesday library. And the Webinar Wednesdays, like this one that you're participating in today, cover lots of different topics in relation to FRCs. So if you look at the Webinar Wednesday library, you'll find that it's divided into sections, and the section about FRCs has lots of recordings for FRCs, telling the story of FRCs from many different perspectives. So there are recorded webinars there about FRCs working with teen parents, FRCs working with Native American communities, FRCs working with dads, FRCs working with grandparents, you name it, anything to do with how FRCs do their wonderful work, looking at it from various viewpoints and working with different kinds of communities. Chances are you can find it in the Webinar Wednesday library. So these are 2 existing resources that are already there. And then the National Network earlier this year developed the FRC Network Hub. Now, this hub is different than the FRC Learning Hub that we'll be talking about today. So there are 2 different hubs. So in terms of giving context, I want to just explain what this one is in case this may be more relevant for some of you. So the FRC Network Hub is a compilation of lots of resources, information that are particularly relevant for those who are developing or managing networks of FRCs. So if you're setting up a network that is multiple FRCs coming together, or running a network that includes multiple FRCs, this is where you would go for information related to that. So network work is very specific, and this is where you can find lots of tools and templates gathered that are useful for people who are managing and running networks. So that's also accessed through the NFSN website. So again, these are all existing resources that then lead us to now talking about the newest resource that we're adding to the mix. And Kirsty will tell you about the process of how we started developing it.
Thank you, Andrew. In order to develop the hub, it was building something a little bit new, but it needed a lot of different voices at the table. So NFSN recruited diverse representatives from both sides of the border who have been involved in developing and planning FRCs, either at the program or systems level, to be part of the planning committee. And over the course of 3 months, we met virtually 7 times to determine what would go into the hub and identify the content to include in it. And then it was up to the NFSN staff to develop and compile those resources. And they did such a wonderful job with that, drawing upon both the Canadian and the US sources that were provided throughout this process. And that planning committee, I have to tell you, it was a true honor to be asked to join this committee because it was an incredible group of people. So we want to recognize each one and thank the committee members for sharing their experience and their expertise. Personally, I have to say, I gained so much from this experience. I really appreciated meeting new individuals at each meeting. There was a focus at each session to have one-on-one conversations so that we could talk about, not only the programs that we're working on and the different things that we're doing in our communities, but we were also able to discuss the weather in different parts of the country and across the border. It was truly, demonstrated that the real focus was not only on sharing information and resources, but building a sense of community. And I think that's really what this Learning Hub is going to be doing, in a way, is sharing some of those, the successes that we've each experienced. And it's a way for us to share those with others. There were so many deep and thoughtful conversations, and truly no detail was too small throughout those planning sessions. And what you see with the Learning Hub really is a piece of passion work, one that will continue to grow and build on the successes of FRCs that we want to survive and thrive in the future. Back over to you, Andrew.
Great. Yes, thank you. And this planning committee did work together very effectively, building connections with each other, as well as doing the work, as Kirsty mentioned, including the fact that a number of them ended up visiting each other. So having site visits and connecting and visiting each other's programs was a nice development that came from them working together. So what we're going to be talking about is the FRC development continuum. Then that is the grounding for the hub that we'll introduce you to in just a moment. So this is also what the committee developed, looking at how do we diagram out the phases of developing an FRC. So what we determined is that there are 6 phases: preparing, planning, develop, operationalize, evaluate, and sustain. So those are the 6 phases that we go through in terms of developing, setting up a Family Resource Center. This is very resonant with myself as well, having directed 2 FRCs in the past that both were brand new. So I remember going through each and every one of these phases twice. And I'm glad that now this resource is being launched that will be of use to folks who are going through those processes, that you don't have to figure it out all by yourself or reinvent the wheel. And with that, we're going to the continuum is also in the chat. Julie just put that in the chat for folks too, that you can download not only this diagram, but the content that goes along with the steps, which we will also introduce you to in just a moment. So the FRC Learning Hub, we're going to show you where that is on the webpage, is based on that continuum that we just showed you. So just today, a new page launched on the website, and we're going to look at it together here. All right, here we go. Okay, so here's the wonderful and colorful NFSN website with lots and lots of photos of beautiful families across the country. And here you want to go to the family support section, and the family support section, you'll see family resource centers. That's the family resource center page that I mentioned earlier. And if you're network folks, you can access the network and the network hub that I talked about earlier on the network page. And I'm going to refresh here. And this drop-down menu is now going to magically show the FRC Learning Hub. So here's the new drop-down, the new page, the new section that you can find here, launched today, the FRC Learning Hub. So here you see the continuum that we just went over with you, and here's where you can click to download it as well. And then this is the entry point for the Learning Hub itself. So you click on this link for the Family Resource Center Learning Hub, and it's going to take you to a page where you fill out some basic information so that we can track and assess how the usage of the site is going, and also be of support to be a best support to the folks who are accessing it. So you fill out a little form, and then you get an email that provides you with the information how to access the hub itself. So we're going to skip as if you had already done that, and then show you what you see once you get into the hub. Okay, so now we're in the hub, and the landing page, the home page, looks very familiar, what we just talked about. So here you see the continuum here, and then it explains that you can navigate through the phases, each of the 6 phases, by clicking on these tabs at the bottom. So these phases connect with the tabs below. So phase 1 is prepare, and then tab 1 is phase 1 prepare, right? So they connect with each other here. And so you're looking for resources for the prepare phase. I'm going to go into that. The prepare page lists out the different steps that the committee identified for the prepare phase. And those are also on that document that you can look at it all in one place as well that we referenced. So this is the same information. It lists out the various steps here, such as starting with reviewing materials about FRCs. So if you're interested in FRCs, you're thinking about developing them, first place to start is looking at the existing information about FRCs to learn more about them. So the next column shares what resources we recommend and have available for you to utilize to complete that step, that first step. So what you see is listed as resources is NFSN compiled FRC resources. And then the next column, you see the NFSN website FRC page. So that's the FRC page that we talked about earlier, whereas the repository for all that information, and you can click right on that. That's a live link that will take you to the FRC page where you can find all that information we talked about earlier. Same thing, another step about viewing webinars about FRCs, and you can go to the Webinar Wednesday library and access that recorded content about FRCs that we talked about earlier as well. So those are some things that reference existing information. And then there are also new documents that are created. So there are both linkages to resources, as well as there are things we call templates, and also things we refer to as samples or examples from the field as well. So there's lots and lots of information here. And there's also, we flag for you, coming attractions too. So for example, a sample planning grant request is something that's going to be available in December, which is only a few days away. So, so as we go through the next months, that you'll see more and more resources be added in, that this will be filled out more and more. And that also includes opportunities for you to share content that we can add to that, which Kirsty will talk about in a little bit. So the prepare phase includes all these different pieces when you're gathering basic information and figuring out how you're going to explore FRCs initially. And then that leads to phase 2, the next tab, the planning phase. And in the plan phase, same thing, we list out the various steps that are here, resources that are available, and also where you can find them. So here's one, a tip sheet about setting up a planning committee. The location of that is in the plan folder. So you click on that, and this will take you to a Dropbox folder. And that Dropbox folder includes these different tip sheets and documents, like this one in particular I just referenced, tip sheet setting up a planning committee. Can you all see that? Did it follow through as I clicked to it that you can see the Dropbox? Okay, so tip sheet about setting up a planning committee. So let's click on that to get a look at that. So this is a tip sheet about setting up a planning committee. And this draws upon content, the tip sheets draw upon content that we developed or was accessed through other entities. So this is an example of a wonderful document that came from Families Canada. So thanks to Families Canada, they introduced us to a manual that had been developed way back in 1990, a how-to manual for developing Canadian family resource programs. So we took that manual, of which actually only a hard copy existed, and we scanned it all in, and then we excerpted content from it, we adapted it, updated it, and then that became the source for a number of these tip sheets like this one that explains how to set up a planning committee for So that's an example of one of the documents there. Go back here a sec. Okay, back to the Learning Hub. Okay, so the plan phase is the longest phase because there's no substitute for good planning. So this one goes on and on and on and on, but we're providing resources for you to help you get through it. So as mentioned, those include these different tip sheets. And then I'm going to show you another example. After we've planned for the FRC, then we're going to move into developing it. And this is where you would see various steps here to develop your FRC, including developing your initial proposal, securing funding. There's a tip sheet here about writing a proposal for an FRC, securing funding, developing a welcoming space, and hiring staff. And for hiring staff, there are sample job descriptions. So when you look at this one, it's going to be in the develop folder. And let's take a look at that. And here in the develop folder, you see a subfolder, which is job descriptions. And let's click on job descriptions. And we're going to see two subfolders under that. One are templates. One of the folders is templates. So templates, when you click on this, these are NFSN developed templates. So these are what we're putting out there that we developed as this is amalgamation or a representation of the best thinking around a template for certain job descriptions. So that's what that one represents. And also in the same job descriptions folder, you can also go to the subfolder of examples. And that's where you're going to see examples that are gathered from the field. So these are examples of particular positions that people have sent to us, and those are uploaded here. And I'm sure this will grow because I'm sure many people will have other job descriptions to send us that they think are particularly of interest to others, and we'd be glad to include them. All right. So those are the first 3 phases that walked you through here. If I can get out of this, not good at this. Go back. And then Christy is going to lead you through the next 3 as soon as I can toggle over to that. Here we go. Okay, so we covered phase 1, prepare, phase 2, plan, phase 3, develop, and turn to Kirsty for phase 4, operationalize.
Thank you, Andrew. So when we operationalize, I mean, we've already done a ton of groundwork at this point, but here's where you actually get to go out into the community and start doing some of that work. So this is where the outreach starts to begin, the initial programming, recruiting for parent advisory committees. And you can see that we have a list of NFSN training opportunities that are available here, and some of them are actually going to be available coming up in the spring. A couple are actually already available, and this is also the relationship building piece. So that is where people who are going through this process are encouraged to make those connections to the other support networks or coalitions. So you can see those listed here as well. So including Families Canada, and getting to that grand opening, which is really such a huge achievement, but there's more that's going to go on after that. So if Andrew can skip to the next one. The next phase is evaluation. You know, it's lovely that we've got the doors open, but it is time to continually evaluate. And I don't know about you, but this is the piece that is always a bit harder for me to imagine how to evaluate all the great work that is being done. And so this is going to be a really great, useful tool to come to in order to get some resources to figure out that evaluation piece. So we do have the standards implementation tools that are available. And again, there's going to be external trainings and resources directory that is currently in development and will be available this coming February. Andrew, if you could pop to the next one, and that is sustain. This is a piece that is still in development because we know there's so much more work that needs to be done in order to keep the doors open, keep growing, and keep serving the families, working with the families. So the list of resources in this section is going to grow, but at the moment we do have the standard certification training. And again, that one will be available in February 2023. The NFSN team is doing a ton of work. I just want to give the kudos to them for building all of these resources that we on the committee recommended be built, and they are putting them out and really appreciate all the work that's going into that back end. Don't know if there was anything else you wanted to point out with those phases, Andrew, but if not, we could probably move on to what's next.
Great. Yes. Just one thing I'll mention before pulling up the slides again is to clarify for folks who are interested in the standards certification training that is available, that is currently available. It's available as a virtual training. What's new, as referenced, is that the standards cover 5 sections of practice, and what the NFSN, the training committee in particular, has been working on is a big mapping project for looking at resources, trainings, tools, things that are out there that could help people go further with each of those 5 sections of the standards. So that will be coming out in February. That will then be an additional way people can go further into the various topics covered in the standards. Okay, so let me pull up the next slide for you. Let's see. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. So what's next? Now that this great resource has launched, we would like to hear from you. You're welcome to share some samples and tools from your FRCs, and they will be reviewed for possible inclusion in order to build up the database of existing resources. There's no point in trying to build something that already exists. So it would be wonderful if you could share some of those success pieces, things that you're really proud of. In addition to that, the stories of the family resource centers that have come before, they're really valuable. And I think there's a lot that you can learn from those who've gone before and started from the ground up. So you'll see coming soon video interviews from those who have started FRCs, who are going to tell their stories and really share what that experience was like and the wisdom that they've gained from that experience.
And beyond that, the next one that is a coming attraction is we'll be exploring using a learning management system with recorded trainings or content versus having live trainings. So when we first conceived of this hub, we originally were thinking of putting a lot of content in a learning management system, and Families Canada was very gracious to offer the usage of their great system for this project. And where we are now in the project is at a point where we'd actually love your input or feedback on thinking about whether it's helpful to develop recorded content that people might go through a learning management system to access, or if it might be more helpful to have live trainings that cover walking people through these resources and going through the various phases of developing FRCs. And it could be both. It could, but we do find that live trainings have a lot more engagement than recorded resources online. So we welcome your thoughts or feedback as we try to figure that out further. But for sure, there's a training piece coming. So one way or another, there's training coming in 2023 that we're very excited about. And along with that, one of the things that we're thinking about doing is developing a cohort of people who are starting FRCs, so that people, again, who are starting individual FRCs, working at the individual FRC level, can connect with like minds and be peer supported and work with a mentor as they go through those phases together. So that's something that we're looking to launch as well. So those are some coming attractions. We also welcome your thoughts, feedback, suggestions about the further development of the hub as well. At the end of this session, there'll be an evaluation that we welcome your feedback on. That will be a great way to record your thoughts. So with that said, we have covered all the information that we wanted to share with you in terms of the launch, and we'll first stop here for questions that folks may have. And then after that, we'll go through some additional resources that may be of use to you moving forward before we have the evaluation and close. So questions people may have, there is the question and answer button on your toolbars that we ask you to add your questions into that rather than the chat. So if you add your questions into the Q&A click on Q&A and then add your questions there. That'll be the most efficient way we can look at and address your questions together. So the first question comes from Karina in Canada, who's asking about if the resources will be available in French. And so what I would say offhand is we currently don't have any resources that were provided in French, but if anyone has resources in French, we'd be glad to include them. We will be adding some Spanish resources that have been shared with us. Just yesterday, we got a nice example of a community needs assessment document that was in Spanish. So that's one of the things we would be uploading. So welcome folks to share resources with us that they think may be of use in this. And I think for further materials in French, that might be something to ask Families Canada about in particular. Bob Gleason asks, are there any tools to help with implementing software to support program activities and reporting? So I think in terms of tools to support reporting, this is where we quickly get into systems level discussion of FRC work. And that's the main work of the National Family Support Network, as mentioned, as a membership organization where we're working with networks of FRCs. And at the network level, the systems level, that's where we talk about things like data systems, about how you get everybody on the same page, reporting the same data, using the same tools and information there. In terms of a tool that an individual program could use, I think that's an area that we're looking for more information or resources about, because it's a little tricky. If a center is brand new and not part of a system, then there isn't a system for them to report data into in that kind of a way, right? Other than what their particular funder might expect, if it's not actually a system or network of FRCs. So that's where it's a little trickier to talk about what tools look like to suggest for an individual FRC, but welcome thoughts, suggestions, resources people might have. Do you have any thoughts about that, Kirsty?
I think you covered it well.
How did you figure out data collection for your FRCs?
How did we figure it out? Have we? That might be the better question. I'd say that is an ongoing piece for us. We continue to look at what it is that we need and what it is that we need to cover. And it's still something that we're being built. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing some of the tools that are going to be shared.
Great. Well, that's a real honest answer and shows we're all learning, right? All of us have room for development. Johanna asks, will the presentation be available to view again at a later time? Yes. So all our webinar Wednesdays are recorded and posted along with the PowerPoint and any materials within 24 hours. So by this time tomorrow afternoon, you can also find this on the NFSN website in the Webinar Wednesday library. Eric in California asks about whether you have to be a member to access the tools. So you do not need to be a member of anything to access the tools. You just need to fill out that little registration form, that basic information, and you can access them. And all the information that is provided through the hub is free. So just like the standards, we see this as a resource for the field that we want to provide at everybody's favorite price, free. Ryan asked about FRCs in rural settings as well as in schools that have better cost effectiveness than urban and community counterparts. Is that consistently the case, or do we know yet? Do we not know yet? I don't know I don't know exactly about that, because of course, the costs are different. Costs of living and costs of doing business are different from urban to rural areas across the US and Canada. I would say school-based FRCs, and I used to work in a school-based FRC. That was the first FRC I worked at. have different costs because they have many resources provided in kind. So if you're thinking about starting up an FRC and have limited resources, one of the logical things to think about is there an opportunity to partner with the school? Because you just need a sympathetic principal and a room, and you can have an FRC. Not much more to it than that in terms of the initial getting going, and you can further develop it from there, of course. And also in terms of school-based FRCs, they're very common in rural areas. So making that connect with what you asked about, and folks that we've talked to about FRCs in rural settings that are in schools, we'll say, well, why is the FRC in a school? And they'll say, because no matter how isolated people are, everybody knows how to get to the school. So the school is a logical hub for FRC supports and services in many communities when it is school-based. Now, that also comes with other points to pay attention to as well, because a school-based FRC is typically not only working with the families of the children in the school, but also is focused on pushing out and working with children, for example, who are not school age yet, because a huge piece of family support work is typically school readiness. So ensuring that those children will actually be ready by the time they get to the school. So in terms of what that looks like, how is a center based at a school serving the school population, but also serving beyond the school population? So that's something that school-based FRCs have to figure out as well. All right, so we covered all the questions that we had so far in the Q&A box. Are there any other questions that people may have? Feel free to keep adding them in, because we'll go over a bit more information and then come back to any other questions that have not been addressed yet. In terms of resources to share, other resources, as you're participating in today's webinar Wednesday, we have a couple more coming up before the end of the calendar year. On December 7th, we'll be hearing from the Georgia Network about how they implemented the standards of quality that Christy referenced earlier, and how that has been part of their continuous quality improvement. So if you're interested to hearing about how the standards have been applied, implemented on a systems level to point towards continuous quality improvement, that would be a good webinar to join. Again, offered at everyone's favorite price, free. And then on December 14th, we have one of our core webinars, which is Uncovering America's Best Kept Secret, where we share more information, 101 information about FRCs and FRC networks. You can register for both of them via the NFSN website. In terms of the standard certification training that we referenced earlier, the standard certification training goes along with the standards, and this is offered by the NFSN on a monthly basis, and it's also offered by many of our member networks across the country. So you can go to the website and find out whether a network in your state is offering the training, or if you want to come to one of the trainings that NFSN offers. They are open trainings, meaning anyone can join from wherever you're coming from. And the January one is the next one that's open. The December one closed already, and you can register for that by the 16th. There are more than 13,000 people in the US and Canada who have successfully completed that training and been certified on the standards, which goes a long way to getting us all together on page with quality work with families, as Kirsty shared earlier. We also have another training that is referenced in the hub a number of times, which is developing and sustaining effective parent advisory committees. This is a training specifically for staff. So this is not a training for the parent leaders, for the parent advisory committee members. This is a training for us. This is training for us as staff to learn about how do we work in partnership in shared decision-making with parent leaders. How do we step back and support parents to step forward? This is a core key component of FRC work. So that's why it's referenced in the hub several times. And this unique training is co-trained both by staff who've worked with parent advisory committees at FRCs and by a parent leader herself who has served on parent advisory committees. So it's a really great training, and there is still room for the December one. That registration closes on the 5th, and then the January one is there too. In terms of other resources that NFSN offers, we're always happy to help facilitate connections to our member networks across the country. We're also happy to make presentations such as that overview about FRCs and FRC networks for anyone. So if you're in a state where that it currently isn't green on that map and you think there are some key stakeholders who might be, it might be helpful for us to talk to at the systems level about thinking about FRCs across the system, like across the state or county or a city municipality, we're happy to connect and talk with folks, be they child welfare leaders, children's trust funds, private funders, school department leaders, and others. So feel free to contact us about that. We also provide technical assistance for FRC network development, and we provide the trainings that I referenced earlier. All right, so there is the contact information for both Kirsty in London, Ontario, and myself here in Washington, DC. If there's anything you want to follow up about after this webinar, that's how you can find us. And with that, we've come to our next steps evaluation. So once again, the evaluation that you will see as you're leaving this webinar, ask you different questions about what you thought about the webinar, as well as what your next steps will be, and also your input and recommendations, your thoughts for how we further develop this. Please feel free to share that in the evaluation so that we can gather your input to further ensure this is a valuable resource for the field. So once again, thank you all for your participation today. Thank you so very much to Kirsty for presenting on this and sharing a Canadian perspective. And thank you to Casey Family Programs for supporting this project. Thank you to Families Canada for sharing resources that we're able to recycle or upcycle into the next generation of folks using them through the hub. And we hope you enjoy accessing the hub and let us know how it goes. Again, we welcome your feedback as we move forward. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.